a.m. on March 15th, 2025. I know it was a long night. I know we've had reports of some significant damage in Grenada County near the Elliott community. Injuries there reported and still assessments underway. A reminder off the top, your National Weather Service will not be doing surveys today. There's just no reason to be putting manpower toward that today, person power toward that today, simply because we have more damage that's likely coming. And there's a number of factors that we are watching with this, including the likely uptick in just the next hour to 2 hours in the number of tornado warnings and potentially strong tornadoes that we end up seeing for today. We've got a couple things going on. First thing I want to get out of the way. I know this may be for more the nerds out there than the normal person, but let's get this out of the way. As you look here at Storm Track Doppler radar, I'll get it up the latest scan. We have less severe thunderstorm warnings what we had an hour or so ago, but the atmosphere is going through that transition before it really gets agitated and going. The thing I want to get out of the way right out of the gate here is if I go to modeling, I'm not going to spend nearly as much time talking about modeling as I typically do because I don't think they're right. So here is our high resolution rapid refresh model. Notice how it has a line of storms where all those storms are, but a broken line, but a line of storms. I want to show you what this shows. Before we get all excited and happy, let's talk about why it's probably not right. So what this has is individual thunderstorms attempting to merge into that line, 11:30 to noon time there, still rotating thunderstorms merging into a line, but largely this looks like, I'm going to actually kick this over to what we call composite reflectivity instead of base reflectivity, so it'll look worse when I do this. But largely this shows more of a line of thunderstorms as opposed to the individual rotating thunderstorms. Okay, any other time I'd be excited about that. Here's why I don't believe it to be right. If you come back to the initialization, which means basically the data go in, and how does that work on one of these models? Well, these models, this particular run runs every hour. And so it hot starts off of radar. And so because the radar image, the radar representation right now is linear, right? Let me get this, show this to you here because it's largely looks like a line. The model sees that and says, oh, it's a line. Lines don't produce discrete storms, don't have rotation, don't produce as many tornadoes. You get them from time to time. Basically, it says it's a line. And it will not morph a line back into individual storm cells. Well, today, because of the angle of the winds, because of the volatility of the atmosphere, we will see what looks fairly linear now morph back into individual discrete storm cells, because ultimately any line is made up of individual cells all working in conjunction. Well, these individual cells are going to be more separated as the strong winds aloft come in. The shear works on them to vent out all the things that would try to make them collapse. And as you can see from those dots, our wind direction is south-southeast. That sharp difference between the south-southeast winds at the surface and the southwest winds aloft will again help these to become more separated individual and dangerous storm cells over the course of the next few hours here. One of the many indications of that, if I go to like all of our regional live, next ride radar sweeps here, you'll see down here toward central Mississippi how you have these showers that they have there. A lot of times, and Gabe will notice this, we get these, cloud bands that show up. You can see the cloud streets, basically avenues of moisture feeding into these storms. We don't usually see them as storms on radar. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, we don't usually see a radar representation from them other than maybe, what the clear air sort of returns. That speaks to the quantity of lower level fuel and moisture feeding into these storms out of a southerly and southeasterly direction. That will allow these storms to become more separated and more severe over the next hour or so. So, whereas I usually spend quite a bit of time talking about models, why this, why that, the model's wrong. And the models are wrong because they're starting it with that line. They did better yesterday because they started individual, it went kind of linear and developed from there. So it had a longer history to kind of understand, it's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying, to kind of work out the full math, for lack of a better way to put it, that then brought them back over to individual storm cells versus starting the model in a shorter range. So all that to say, there's our newest confirmed tornado, not in our area, but a sign as we're gonna have to work real hard to keep the lightning off of these. They're gonna be extremely electric near Lake Providence, and that is kind of that angle where we start looking at ones that could make it here eventually, right? So let's check that. And again, I want to give credit here. I want to pull this down so you have to focus on me for a second. I want to give credit here uh, to Darren Jones up at the National Weather Service Memphis. I called him with my uh, harebrained theory on the warm start of the model, and he agreed with that there. Folks at the National Weather Service, they have 10 people right now at the office up there, National Weather Service in Memphis. That's not to say the number we also have in Jackson, making sure that they can have teams of people watching each thunderstorm so that they get the warnings out, they get the updates out, because we expect to have multiple tornadoes on the ground at the same time today. Even last night when we're tracking it, we might have had multiple tornadoes on the same storm, but we expect to have multiple tornadoes, including different thunderstorms producing tornadoes at the same time. And so they have teams of people that will be watching individual thunderstorms and rapidly updating that. So those folks at the National Weather Service, I cannot say enough the amazing job they do and the cooperation between them and what we do to keep you safe. It is a team effort. I'm just your face and voice for that. They do a lot of things behind the scenes. Okay, now back to this. And I'm going to double check their warning, get an idea on their speed. This would be National Weather Service Jackson. Radar indicated the description on this 45 miles per hour the speed. Gabe, when you get a moment, I want to double check future storm speeds, expected storm speeds as we go through the day as that, as the max hits this, how fast we expect them to eventually get up to. Do we think I was anticipating 55 or so? The fact we're still 45, we were 45 a lot last night, if I'm being honest, caught me a little by surprise. I was expecting it to be a little faster than that. So I want to make sure that we get that right this time as opposed to me just making an assumption. Um, let's go a long track. And I'm going to still go, now I'm going to go 45, and that might be a little slow by the time it gets here, but 45 is what they're going. And you can see a wide track here when this gets here. And assuming it's only 45 miles per hour, you can see how late that says 2 o'clock for Tupelo. I'll buy that in the least. We'll have other storms probably forming before that. It'll be way before 2 before we see storms there. Let's look a little closer at that. We expect additional development ahead of this as well. It is not moving fast at the moment, is it?
No, it's like 30, 35
Yeah, it's not moving fast.
on the tornado warn part.
Yeah, on the 20, I agree. That is moving super slow, but it's also deviant motion. Um, Deviant meaning it's deviating from the norm. I'm going to keep it a little farther south on that because of that, maybe for a more realistic angle here. Kosciuszko was show close to noon on this. Louisville close to 1. Starkville close to 1:20. Columbus close to 2 o'clock. I think those times are excessively late. We will have other thunderstorms forming ahead of this. I think that's too slow. Here's why we believe all of what we believe, and I'm not going to keep this going for a super long period of time, simply because I have to reserve my voice for when it's in our area. Because I will lose my voice today. The question is not if, it's a matter of can we make it to say 4 or 5 o'clock before it happens. So the severe risk for today, level 5 out of 5, as we talked a lot about yesterday. I was like, this needs to come north. Well, they moved it north. I think this is good position. Do you agree, Gabe?
Yes, I mean that's what we were talking about all day yesterday with instability. So
Okay. So we pretty good on the location here. This comes down to opportunity, right? It's the reason I'll use a good basketball analogy. It's the reason shooters tend to score more points. If you shoot 20 shots a game, it's easy to score 20 points a game. What are you looking
it's
at?
just right outside of Grenada, and it's starting to get a little bit of that wraparound.
Okay, I'm gonna
So
go get my mic on here in a minute. Um,
how do you want to do it with Jonathan?
we're gonna use everybody. Um, I'll have you there. I'll have John back here. Um, and I need the two of you to kind of just like be bouncing storm to storm, just to make sure that like something like that, so we don't end up missing anything developing. I'll be on whatever whatever we've got to be on, and we'll probably have to trade back and forth some because my voice will not hold.
Okay.
So there'll be certain times where when I see something I'm pretty sure it's on the ground, I'll trade you in. I'll tag you in. And then, when I'm not as sure, no, anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
We'll make it work.
Lebanese, I interpret it.
Somebody's got to. My brain will kick on eventually here in a minute once I get my biscuit in. So let's pull that down for a moment. Tornado risk remains significant. Anywhere on here, pretty much in Mississippi, if I go wide, the entire state, with the exception of right at Memphis, has the potential for strong, long lived tornadoes today. And we're looking at multiple rounds of strong, long lived, potentially violent tornadoes in this zone here, the reds and the pinks. And yes, I would say the reds, you and I need to treat that about the same. Okay? Because the potential for the tornado is there. It just might only be one or two times you have that potential, as opposed to three or four times you have that potential in Amory or Starkville, Columbus. That's the color here. The color shows us, hey, how many times you can have a rotating thunderstorm come over your house. Because if there are four rotating thunderstorms, I mean, if 1 in 4 drops one, there you go. Whereas if there's, one rotating thunderstorm and 1 in 4 drops one over Oxford, well, maybe you get luckier. So again, this is about opportunity, and you have more opportunity to be impacted down here in the pink area. That is the purpose of the pink. We will be live streaming as this comes through the TVA Weather, the TVA News app. I don't know why, for whatever reason, that is not popping up there. Thank you. We have got newer cough drops. They're picking on me that my cough drops date back to 2002, and Gabe dates back to 2001. Weather call. Here we are. And I keep showing these two graphics over and over again. I'm getting nice and close, and we'll talk about this. Weather call will call you if that tornado warning is for you. Now, there'll be times the tornado sirens go off and you don't get a weather call. And that might be a situation where you're not actually directly in the warning itself. So there will occasionally be discrepancies. It will call you if you're in the danger zone for tornado warnings and call you back if that is upgraded to a confirmed tornado. Today, you have to have this. And here's why. We are fast, but it becomes very difficult to track every thunderstorm when you might have 2 or 3 of these producing tornadoes at once. And especially if you say have every location's important. So don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. But if you have a tornado coming through Columbus and a tornado coming through Tremont and a tornado going through rural northern Tippah County, it's going to be difficult to stay on all 3 of those tornadoes for very long. It's going to be easy for Weather Call to beat me on getting you alerts. That's where those teams of forecasters at the National Weather Service come in. Because those teams of forecasters are the ones issuing those warnings that pop into our system, that populate Weather Call, that give you that notification, that make the apps go off. They're the ones who do that. And because they're just more physical human beings looking at it, that's why you have to have Weather Call today. That way you do not waste seconds because of the potential for these to be strong tornadoes. Okay? And the storm shelters. I want to be clear that there are more locations than the dots that show up on my map here. Montgomery County in particular installed a bunch of storm shelters in the last month or two. We have that a full list at the QR code here. You go to that QR code on the screen, and you can't do it right now because I'm talking, right? Do a screenshot of it, right? Do a screenshot of the screen, and you can go back to that picture when we're done and tap on that. It'll give you storm shelters. There is a significant potential for strong tornadoes today. Period. Strong tornadoes make it to where you want to be in a reinforced structure. So, storm shelters are important. Getting to a friend's house that's reinforced is important. But these are the only 2 things that you can actually do to save your life. Watching me may make your anxiety go up, may make your anxiety go down. That does not change whether or not you make it. What does change whether or not you make it through a tornado is whether or not you know where these shelters are and go to them, are in a sturdier structure, or if you know that a warning's even out for your area. So that's why I talk about weather call. That's why I talk about code red. That's why I talk about the weather app. Multiple ways we have to let us know that we're in danger. I'm going to put up our list here again, and then we're going to get back to actual weather stuff, and I'll stop preaching for a moment. But please, I beg you, please have multiple ways to find out if you're in danger. Okay? Whatever reason, it looks like my comments I'm not going to be able to get. So I'm probably going to have to stop this down before we start our main stream. Uh-oh. It looks like I don't know if I end up kicking that off. Hmm. Oh well. So here's what we'll do. We will probably, if this did end up stopping that stream for one reason or another, we'll start a new one up here in just a little bit. Okay? As we kind of get going here on what's likely to be a fairly active day. Be safe, be smart, and I pray the worst doesn't happen.